Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar entitled The Personality of Success with Merrick Rosenberg. Merrick's reputation and accomplishments supersede any introduction I could give him, but we're honored to have him here today. He's the CEO of Take Flight Learning. My name is Esther, and I'm the operations manager here at RCS Professional Services. We are an IT managed service support company based in New York City and Atlanta, Georgia. And it is our pleasure to have you all. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here. So in a moment, I'm going to introduce our CEO and founder, Jeffrey Tabelli, and he'll tell you a little bit about how we got to Merrick and introduce the webinar. But before that, I just want to take a minute just to do a little bit of housekeeping. Because of the enormous amount of people who we're lucky enough to have on today's webinar, I have everybody muted right now. If at any point you'd like to speak or ask questions, we welcome that. We'd love your feedback and participation. Please enter your questions into the questions chat box and we'll see them, we'll address them, we'll get to them during the webinar or at the end of it. And we'll leave time for Q&A so we can hopefully get to everybody. And we look forward to having you participate. So without further ado, I want to introduce our CEO and founder, Jeffrey Tabelli. And one last word about DISC, and I'll let Jeff fill in the gaps, but you may be wondering what that has to do with IT. And again, Jeff's going to speak to this in more detail, but we realized quickly that having a superior tech team was not the only recipe to providing a superior customer experience. So that's where Merrick and Taking Flight and DISC came in. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, how are you?
Hey.
So welcome, everybody. For those who are on the webinar that know me, this is something I'm very passionate about. I happened to run into this concept of DISC several years ago. My company's around for 20 years. As Esther mentioned, we do IT support services, and it has little to do directly with this, but a lot to do with, having an effective team. And part of that is understanding how you tick yourself, me, myself, and how your teammates tick, and you could communicate better. So at the end of the day, this was basically a game changer for me personally and for my company, because it was just eye-opening when I took my assessment, realizing things that I shouldn't be doing and things that I should be doing, and the way that I speak with my staff, my teammates, my wife, my family, everything. So Merrick wrote a book that I found on Amazon. It's called Taking Flight, and basically, I've sent this book to probably over 100 people. I'm fascinated by it and the wonders that it could do. So in terms of what it is, and I'd like to leave it to Merrick to explain and take us through his journey and teach us as much as he can in this short period of time. Welcome, Merrick.
Hi there.
Merrick, I'm so sorry. I think I was muted before, so I just wanted to quickly jump in with a quick intro. I'm going to backtrack a drop. I'm sorry about that, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me now. But I just started by saying that we're RCS Professional. We're an IT managed service company. And as Jeff explained, we realized quickly that having the best technical skills was not the only recipe to deliver the best customer experience. And that's sort of how we got to Merrick and DISC. And just a quick housekeeping, we welcome your questions and comments. We just have everybody muted right now due to the nature of having hundreds of people on here. So we would love for you to participate. Just use the little raise hand button or the chat box to submit any questions or feedback throughout, and we'll make sure to address all of them throughout or at the end. I apologize. Thanks so much.
Sure, no worries at all. So as a parrot, which we'll talk about, I just go with the flow. So thank you, Jeff. Awesome. I appreciate you sending the book to so many people. Today, I would just love to share with people, what are these personality styles? What are these birds? How can you use them in your life? How can you apply them? And we're going to have some fun. So let's just do it. Let's dive in and go for it. So you can see, I'm going to give you 30 seconds history. Where does this stuff come from? The DISC model, it's been around for a long time. It's been around, the idea of DIS and C have been around since 1928. It was in a book by William Marston. Interestingly, nobody owns DISC. It's just kind of out there in the public domain. And when we think about these styles, I think people think about it as letters and graphs and models and reports. And that's true. You do figure out what your letter is, you get a graph, you get a report. But here's the thing. It's not about letters, graphs, models, and reports. It's about understanding yourself and how you can use this. So I want to take it to a different level today. I'm also going to show you, traditionally, this is the old model of the DISC styles. Let's give you the new model. Obviously, the most self-aware people are the most successful people. Anytime you meet somebody who is highly self-aware, they put themselves in roles where they're going to be successful, they build strong relationships, they drive success. And yes, the styles are about self-awareness. What is your style? Which bird are you? But it can't stop there. And I think that's where DISC often falls short. What we need to do is not just talk about self-awareness. We have to talk about how can you apply this every day in your life. And so that's where we're going to head to. But even bigger than that, years ago, I used to run DISC training programs, and they were for a team of 20 people or a department of 40 people. Nowadays, it's not just about a team or a department. It's about an entire culture of an organization. It's about how do you use these styles as an individual, whether it's with your family, whether it's as a manager or a leader, whether it's as an individual contributor, but also how do you use it in an entire organization? So that's where we're going to head to. I'm going to show you how to apply it.
I think the self-awareness piece was like huge for me. Like, is that always like I mean, maybe because I'm extreme in some cases, but I didn't realize that.
Well, if you think about it, that's the first step. And yeah, you get this level of self-awareness from reading Taking Flight or The Chameleon. You get a sense of your style. But my next question would be, okay, what are you going to do about it? So it's not just knowing it, it's how do you use it? And that's where we're going to put our energy.
Right. I can't wait.
Yep. So let's do it. So I'll pull you into the conversation here, Jeff. When you think of an eagle, instead of these letters, which people just don't remember, let's use something a little more visual. So Jeff, when you think of someone who's an eagle, what do you think they would be like? What are their traits or characteristics? And if you're tuning in, think of this yourself too. What would you say an eagle would be all about?
Yeah, I would say like a dominant leadership qualities, very task-oriented, stuff like that, I would say.
Exactly right. When you think of a leader, we think of that eagle style. Of course, anybody could be a leader, but eagles just like to be in charge. They're all about results, bottom line, direct, confident. They make quick decisions. They're assertive. They call it like it is. You can feel that energy of the eagle, but you can also feel that the energy of a parrot is so different. So when you think of a parrot, what comes to mind?
Optimism.
Absolutely. For the parrot, it's all good. Everything just works out. One of my sons is the parrot style, and I remember when he was a little kid, I was running late. I would get in the car, and you know what happens every time you're running late. Every time you get to a traffic light, of course, it turns red. You think you can make it, but you can't. And I get to the very first light out of the neighborhood, and it's just about, oh, I miss it, and now I have to stop at a red light. And my son from the back seat, he's probably like 5 years old, looks at me as a parrot and goes, "Hey, we're going to be the first ones to go, and the light turns green."
All right. Actually, it's always green for them, I think.
It's always green. It's always sunny for the parrot. They always figure out the bright side. For them, they're positive, they're upbeat, they're motivational, they're social, they're talkative, and they're outgoing. So
also,
how about
like magnetic personality, right? They're always like have a million friends, right?
Yeah, they just have charisma and that magnetism. They draw people to them. Absolutely. Yeah. So when you think of this next one, which is the dove, so Jeff, what would you say? What comes to mind for the dove?
Peace.
It's the universal symbols of peace and hope and harmony. And we think of them as relationships and love, and that's true for the dove. If you have that dove style, they're caring, they're compassionate, they just want everyone to get along. Right. They're good listeners, they're very loyal and consistent. All right, last one. First word that comes to mind when you think of the owl.
Calculating.
Calculating, absolutely. They think things through. Probably a lot of people think of wise, not that they're necessarily the smart one. Any of these can be intelligent, but we think of those owls as wise and thoughtful and logical and analytical and detail-oriented. If they're going to do something, they're going to do it right. I had this moment recently where I was driving somewhere, and my wife had asked me where I was going, and I had a meeting that I was attending, and I'm a parrot, she's the owl. And she said to me, "So where are you off to?" And I told her, and she said, where is that? I have no idea where you're headed. And I was trying to describe it to her, and she's like, I still have no idea where you're going. How far is it? And I was like, I don't know, 2 hours. It's probably like 2 hours or so. And I said, hold on 1 second. I reached in my pocket, pulled my phone out, I type it into maps. Now, as a parrot, I'm very proud of myself. Hour 59.
Nice.
Pretty nice, right? And she looks at me as the owl and says, so you're wrong. It's like, well, there you have it. Owls, they're on, as you said earlier, they're on the task side. They're going to do it. They're going to do it right. Eagles, they are on the task side, but they want to do it now.
Right.
The parrots are on the people side, so are the doves. Parrots want everyone to be happy and engaged. Doves want everyone to get along. On the top, eagles and parrots, their pace is fast. Things are moving, action, decisive, risk-taking, outgoing, talkative. On the bottom, even, steady-paced, more deliberate, a little more thoughtful, and just a little more reserved, a little more quiet. And so there's no good, there's no bad. You know, we're all a combination of all of them. So I'm the parrot eagle. So you can think to yourselves, which one are you? Jeff, what would you say? What is your style?
I'm a owl dove.
Owl dove, awesome. So we complement each other. So you can give us the owl dove perspective as we go through this. So we're all a little bit of everything. But here's what happens. We impose our style on others, and we do it all the time. There's a great George Carlin quote. He said, everyone driving slower than me is an idiot. Everyone driving faster than me is a maniac. And what do we think? So what do you think of this one, Jeff? What do we think? My way is what?
My way is the right way.
Absolutely. And if you're the owl, you have data. You can even show me your way is the right way.
Even if you show me that I'm wrong, I'm not wrong.
Right, because you have the receipts. I can show you that I'm right. I've got the data. It's all right here.
Right.
And so what happens is we impose our style on others, and we do it all the time. And I'll give you an example here. Let's just imagine, and I'm going to use my little friends here, my little desktop birds. You are an owl. How about this guy? You're the owl.
Right.
How likely is it, if you're a leader, that you're going to create a very structured key performance indicators, documenting data, tracking process? As an owl, what would you say? Is that likely to be an environment you would create for your people?
Highly likely.
Highly likely. But what if you're managing an entire team of parrots?
Yeah,
how do they feel?
They're not going to take that.
Yeah, they're not liking that at all. But as an owl, what's your logic? Why would you create an environment like that? Like, what are you thinking?
Just like you said, to do it right. Like, one of our core values in our company is do it right. Maybe that's an extension of me, but you want to get it right the first time.
Hey, let's measure twice, cut once. We're going to have a process. We're going to do it right the first time.
Right.
You ever look behind a picture frame that a parrot has hung up on a wall? There's like multiple holes where they like hang it, and they're like, that's not right. They remove it. They put another hole. They're like, no one will see. No one will know that they're there. The owl uses a laser level and a ruler, and one hole, it is done.
Right.
So, but the thing is that we impose our personality on others, and we do it all the time. And imagine this one. I'll flip that scenario around just to be fair. You're a parrot, and now I'm a parrot. As a parrot, I'm very likely to create a motivating, upbeat, positive environment. I believe in you. Go for it. Not a lot of structure. You know what to do. Make it happen. But what if you're an owl? How's an owl going to feel in that culture?
Awful.
Like, what do you want me to do?
Where do I start? Tell me what to do.
Do you see the difference? And this is what happens. And my motivation is I want to create an empowering environment. Yours is I want it to be done right. And they're both fine. But what we do is impose our style on others, and we do it all the time. So let's run through. I'm going to hit you with a whole bunch of topics here, and I'm going to show you how the styles play out in our lives. So let's start with a nice simple one. Look, if you're a poor communicator, I don't care what your job is, it's an issue. If you're a manager or leader and you're a poor communicator, it's a problem. If you're a salesperson and you're a poor communicator, it's a problem. So let's take a look at how the styles communicate, and they communicate differently based upon who they are. So how about this one? Big picture or detail oriented? Which do you think are the two detail oriented styles?
The owl and the dove.
Exactly right. So, and as an owl dove, they want a lot of detail and information.
All right.
Eagles and parrots are like, yeah, just tell me what you need. I'll do it. So imagine, I'll give you a real life scenario here. Imagine this situation. I'm working with somebody, I'm running an event, and she comes up to me after I'm speaking at this conference, and she comes up to me and she's holding a profile, because yes, people do take an assessment, you figure out what your style is. I can see on the cover, she is an owl, and she said to me, this is the perfect time to learn about these styles. I'm about to get flown across the country. I was up in New York, and she's going to get flown out to Silicon Valley. She has a 30-minute meeting with the CEO, not a minute more. Her and her team have been working on something. They think they've got a new product, and not only a new product, they think it could ultimately be a whole new product line. Everyone in New York is very excited about it, and this is it. She's worked it up the chain, 30 minutes with the CEO. CEO likes it. All right, get some budget, some time. Let's see if this thing's got legs. If the CEO says, you know what, it's really off mission for us, it's not really where we're headed, I don't like it, done. What do you think? Any pressure for her?
A lot of pressure.
Yeah, her team's counting on her. The folks in New York are counting on her. So she flies out there, and she's going to do this presentation. So before she goes, she comes up to me and she said, is there anything you can tell me? And so I said to her, well, I can see you're the owl, but let me ask you this. Do you know the style of the CEO? And this is what she said to me. She didn't just say he's an eagle. She said he is an off the scale eagle, not just little eagle, big eagle. So picture off the scale eagle. So as an owl, I asked her some questions. So Jeff, you could see if you can answer them how she answered them. I said to her, do you have a PowerPoint presentation? What do you think she said?
Yes.
Of course, right? How about a lot of charts, data, graphs, statistics, timelines, milestones? What do you think?
Yes, yes, yes.
In fact, what do you think she thought about the fact that she has 30 minutes to present everything she's been working on?
Not enough time.
How is she possibly going to condense everything into this 30 minutes? So can you also guess what I told her she needs to do with her PowerPoint presentation for an off the scale eagle?
Throw it away?
Almost, you're right there. I looked at her and I said, here's what I want you to do. Whatever is your last slide, I want you to start with that. Everything else, backup data. Because let's get into the situation here. Imagine if she flew out there with all these charts and graphs and data and statistics and timelines and goals and impact, and 22 minutes in, she finally turns to him and she says, and therefore, this is what we recommend. How's she doing at like minute 12?
No, the guy's already on the smartphone checking his email.
Yeah. He's checked out. Yeah, because when you're communicating to an eagle, be brief, be brilliant, be gone. That's
right.
it.
No
That's
patience.
Yeah. Now, but let's get into her mindset here for a moment. Why is she sharing all of this information? Why does she think she needs to share this with him?
To prove she's right.
And exactly. And how else can he possibly make a decision without all this information? We have to communicate it. But do you notice what she's done here? She's imposing her style on him. And in the end, she's not likely to get what she wants. And here's the coolest part of the story. I saw her after this event. It was a few weeks after the event. And she came up to me. She's like, oh, I got to tell you what happened. And I was like, well, how'd it go? You had 30 minutes. How'd your time go? And she looked at me and she said, 15 minutes. And I was like, well, with an off the scale eagle, I'm like, 15 minutes good or 15 minutes bad? And she said, I did what you said. I just went right to the bottom line. He asked a few questions, and about 15 minutes in, he said, sounds good to me. All right, why don't you work on it? See where it goes, report back.
Right.
Done.
We have one client that's super high eagle, I would say. And it's every time I talk to him, it's like, what's the bottom line? How much is it gonna cost? When is it gonna be done? Like, that's it. Like I realized after I read all this stuff, like, what the hell am I doing? I'm coming with stuff and just
otherwise it's just bombarding them with detail that they don't even want or need, and they're just going to tune you out anyway.
Right.
So your example is exactly right. It's that we understand we have to be able to be flexible and adaptable to the people that we're talking to. And the reality is, whose style are we most likely to communicate in? Well, it's our own. If I'm a parrot, I'm going to communicate as a parrot. If I'm an owl, I'm going to communicate as an owl. And that's the challenge, because eagles and parrots just, I don't need all that detail. Doves and owls like a lot of information, and even tone and body language. I'll give you an example here. Stay on communication for a moment. Owls and eagles tend to focus on the words, the content, the data. Doves and parrots tend to tune into the emotions. I had this example. This was back in 2019 as we were flying around the world, and I was sitting at an airport, and I wasn't eavesdropping, but when a couple is sitting 5 feet in front of me and they're getting louder, it's you can't stop hearing it. And so there was this moment where I think this was the moment I tuned in. He looks at her and he said to her, "I do not understand how a fact isn't a fact." and she looks at him and she's like, "Well, it's the way you said the fact. It was the way you said it to me." And he's like, "It doesn't matter how you say a fact. You can say a fact however you want. It's still a fact." She's like, "No, it isn't." and picture how many times we've had this conversation, like with a spouse, for example. Yeah. And so let's take a moment. We're going to talk about people reading in a moment, because if you're going to apply this, you have to be able to read someone's style. And I'm going to show you how to do that. But even just what we're up to so far, what do you think? What do you think his style is?
He was the owl, obviously.
Yeah, he's the owl, and maybe a little eagle thrown in there for good measure. He was direct and assertive and factual. What style do you think she was?
She was the dove.
Exactly. And notice how fast you're able to pick that up. And here's what happened. He was probably a little too blunt, a little too direct, and she's tuning into the emotions. And now they are no longer arguing about what they're arguing about.
Right.
They are now arguing about how they're arguing.
Can you come to my house, man?
Right. Exactly. Anyone ever have this conversation with your spouse? Because what happens is they're not speaking the same language. They're talking past each other. I mean, if you think about it, if an owl writes a text message before they even hit send, what do you think? They reread it. Why does an owl reread the text message before they send it?
Because it can't have mistakes. It's got to be correct.
Got to be right. But here's the thing. Why does the dove reread it?
The dove, that's a trick question. Why does the dove reread it? Because they don't want to hurt someone's feelings.
Exactly right. Notice the difference. The dove and the parrot tend to tune into how they come across. The eagle and owl, it's about the facts, the data, the logic. But you can see how different we communicate. And I'll flip that around. So that's how we send information out. Let's talk about how we take it in. So imagine this scenario. I'm a parrot, and let's talk about, we'll start with parrots and listening just for a moment. What do parrots prefer doing instead of listening?
Talking.
You got it. So for a parrot, here's a little window into the parrot mind as they are listening. It's like they have a Google search engine in their brain, and you're sharing a story with the parrot. Could be about anything. Trip to the beach. And here's what happens in the parrot mind. Trip to the beach. And then they're like, I have a beach story. It's a great beach story. I have to share my beach story. And the moment you pause just a little too long, what happens?
It's
boom. They start sharing their beach story. So, and here's the thing. Parrots aren't trying to one-up you. What they're actually doing is connecting with you. For the parrot, it's like you have a beach story, I have a beach story, we share that together. So it's how they build rapport and connection. For the dove, doves and listening. Doves, what do you think doves pick up on? And that story a moment ago illustrated it. What are they tuning into and picking up on?
Just the sensitive side of the story, maybe?
Exactly right. The emotions, the feelings, they tune into what's happening. If anybody has ever walked up to a dove and said, the dove says to you, hey, how are you? And you say, oh, I'm good. And then they look at you and they're like, come on, what's up? because they just know. It's that empathetic connection. They sense it. And look, people go to doves with their problems. Why do people go to doves with their problems? Pretty obvious, because they listen, and they listen with empathy. You talk to a dove with your problem and they say, I'm so sorry to hear that. That sounds so upsetting or so frustrating. You go to an eagle with your problems and the eagle's like, you know what I would do? I would go in there. I would tell them, you know what? Give me their number. I will call them right now. I will fix it. Eagles are like, must fix problem.
Right.
And they jump to the end of the conversation. They focus on the goal, on the impact.
Right.
How about owls? I'll give you a little window into the owl mind as they are listening. So for the owl, and see if this resonates with you, with having some owl style in there. Owls listen to what you're saying, but while you're speaking, they're comparing what you are saying with what they already know or think it should be.
Right.
If it matches, we're good. If it does not match, you are going to get a lot of questions.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I agree.
Analytical listeners, analytical people. They're tuning into the details and the logic. But notice, if I know what you listen for, now I know how to talk to you. And this is the power of what we're talking about here. In other words, if I'm talking to a dove, I need to warm it up a little, soften the language. If I'm talking to an eagle, get to the point. If I'm talking to a parrot, be energetic, tell stories. If you're talking to an owl, be organized and logical. But if you are imposing your style on them, they may not even hear you because you're not speaking their language.
Right.
And think about all the places. I mean, I'm sure, like in your world, if your sales folks understand this, look at the power of how they are connecting with your customers.
Right.
It's a game changer. It changes everything.
Definitely the self-awareness component, and like you said, like not speaking your language, speaking their language, and then
Absolutely.
that yield results. The other one,
Right.
you're just putting your head against the wall.
Right, exactly. And then we take that self-awareness and then we apply it to, okay, now how do I communicate this to other people? And now we're not just aware of it, now we're applying. So how about this one? Let's take another topic. How about delegation? So like everybody tuning in, I will tell you this is a true statement. You either delegate work to people or you get work delegated to you, maybe both. So let's play that out a little bit. How about this? Parrot delegating a project to an owl. So for the parrots tuning in, how amazing is this project? It's pretty awesome. I mean, could be the best ever, but I can't even wait to tell you about it. So the parrot is about to delegate a project, and here's what they do. They call up that owl and they say, I have got a project for you. It's new, it's exciting. Here's your goal. Here's when I need it. Any questions? Now, if I'm talking to parrots, what do you think parrots thought about that?
Yeah, all good. Sounds amazing.
In fact, I've been reading books about motivating and empowering people. Nailed it. I mean, I am literally an empowering motivational leader. I'm sure the owls felt that way too. What do you think about the owls? What do you think they would have thought about that?
Where's the manual?
Yeah, what are you looking for? What are your goals? What is the process?
Right.
The intention is to motivate and empower, but it's just not connecting with the owl. So let's flip it around. This time, owl delegating a project to a parrot. So I'll check in as an owl. Would you do a little pre-thought, maybe a little pre-work, organizing your thoughts before delegating?
Yes.
Of course, you can't just delegate it. Got to gather your thoughts. So the owl calls up the parrot and says, I have a project for you. A few things I'd like you to do. First, I need you to do this, this, and this. Now, as you go through the process, a few things you might want to consider. In fact, I made a spreadsheet for you because if there's anything that motivates parrots, definitely spreadsheets. So let's walk you through the rows and the columns. All right, so let's go check in with the owls first. Owl, what do you think?
Yeah, sounds great.
I mean, literally, I have set them up for success.
Yeah.
They have to be comfortable with that. But if you're a parrot, what do you think the parrot feels? Put on a parrot hat for a sec. What do you think a parrot would feel in that moment?
Uncomfortable.
Yeah, like, don't you trust me? And why do you feel the need to micromanage me and tell me what to do? Don't you believe in me? Isn't that why you hired me? And the challenge here is that parrots and eagles like freedom. Give me the goal, I'll make it happen. Doves and owls like structure. What are you looking for? Paint the picture for me, give me the framework, and I will succeed. And neither of those is good or bad or right or wrong, but they're fundamentally different. And the issue is that we impose our style on others. We tend to delegate in our own style. And I'll give you, I teach a course on selling using the 4 styles. It's called chameleon selling. So I'm going to steal a line from that session, and it applies to everything here. If you're selling someone and your style is different from theirs, one of you is going to leave that interaction exhausted, and it better be you. Think about that. One of you is going to have to flex. Do you want it to be the customer? If you're delegating work, one of you is going to have to flex. Do you want it to be your direct report? In the example in the first story with the CEO, you're presenting to the CEO. That's a managing up. It's sales. It's just selling internally. Do you want to make the CEO flex to you? Does it take energy to flex? Absolutely. But when it's critical, when it's an important conversation, those are the moments you have to flex to the customer, to an employee, to a family member, to a child. We think about how we talk to our own children. Sometimes we impose our style on them as well.
Yeah.
So this is the power. I mean, can you see it in your own family, how the styles play out?
Yeah. Every single day. I need to like pay attention to this more. Now you woke up my thoughts.
Awesome. And that's the power. Yeah, I always say, once you shine a light on this, darkness does not survive the light. You shine a light on these 4 birds, and it's like you have a model for thinking about interacting with people. Let's do another one. How about feedback? So let's use that exact example here. And hey, Parrot delegated a project to the owl. Owl, fantastic work, did an amazing job. So the parrot wants to give positive feedback. Sounds reasonable. Parrot calls up the owl, see if this would work for you, if this type of feedback resonates with you. So the parrot calls them up and says, you were amazing. And I'm talking passion, energy, enthusiasm, loved what you did, fantastic work, knocked it out of the park, great job. Now, if you're a parrot and you got that feedback, what do you think that parrot's thinking? They're driving home, what do you think?
Yeah, they're feeling the vibe, right?
Oh yeah, it's like rewind, play, rewind, play. They're just thinking about it in their head. They can't even wait to get home, tell their spouse about it. But if I gave that enthusiastic, motivational, upbeat feedback to the owl,
yeah,
what do you think? In fact, did that even count as feedback to you?
It's feedback, but it was probably missing a couple of points, right?
It's interesting, isn't it? It's like kind of feedback, I guess. But I mean, was it useful? What am I doing with that? Because the owl wants specific data. Now, if the owl gave feedback to the parrot and said, I want to thank you for what you did on the project, a few things I wanted to highlight. First, I wanted to point out in the first phase, you did this, this, and this. Now, as you went through the project, owls are thinking, okay, I'm liking it. This is great. What do you think a parrot's thinking about?
The next thing.
Yeah, they're kind of, and here's the thought about, the owls giving them this feedback and the parrot's thinking to themselves, but did you like it? Because I can't tell. and imagine this scenario. So imagine I'm the parrot and I got this upbeat, motivational feedback. I'm feeling good. I get home, my wife is an owl, and I say to her, hey, you know that project I've been working on for months? Manager loved it. So what does she say? What do you think the owl response to that is?
I don't know. Trick question. I don't know the answer to this one.
This one is, well, what did she like? What did your manager like about it?
Okay.
Right? Like, I mean, wouldn't you want to know? Like, well, you're telling me the manager liked it. What did they like? And of course, my response as a parrot, I don't know. But in fact, I don't care. They liked it. That's all that matters to me. Then the owl starts asking questions, and now I'm like, now you're just bringing me down.
Right.
So watch how different this is. Parrot, enthusiasm. Owl, detail. Let's give feedback to the dove. It's not about the big energy. It's not about all the data. If I give feedback to the dove, see if this would resonate with doves that you know. If I just said to that person, I want to thank you for what you did on that project. Not only did you make a difference for the team, but you made a difference for the customer. And I really appreciate that. Thank you. What do you think?
XOXO.
Right? I get hugs for that one. Because it's just genuine and sincere. But notice it didn't have big energy. Right. It didn't have tons of detail, but it was very clearly dove feedback. Now,
Right.
what do you think? What do eagles care most about?
Results.
Absolutely. They care about results. If I'm giving feedback to the eagle, I want to thank you for what you did on the project. You helped us to meet our objectives. Because of that, we increased this, decreased that. Nicely done. Eagle, what do you think?
Makes sense.
How different were those four?
Yeah, completely different.
And yet, and remember what I said earlier, whose style am I most likely to give feedback in?
Your own.
Absolutely. And that's the challenge, is that we have to take all of these skills that we use every day and think about, am I imposing my style on others, or am I communicating and treating them the way they would want to be treated? And that's the power of applying the birds in your life, not just understanding your graph or your report.
Right.
Let's do another one. Yep. How about this one, risk taking? Just to give you a sense of the styles and how they take risks. Some styles are big risk takers. Some styles are maybe at the lower end of the continuum. We're more thoughtful. What do you think about eagles and risk taking?
Off the charts.
Let's do it. They're confident. They want to achieve something big. In fact, big risk, big reward. Let's do it. Parrots are different though. It's not about the outcome. Why do you think a parrot takes a risk?
To have fun?
Hey, it's awesome. It'll be an adventure. And plus, they're so optimistic from their perspective. What could happen? I mean, literally, what is the worst thing that could happen? And then there's an owl nearby and they're like, I will tell you what could happen. It's not pretty. They go from like 0 to worst case scenario in 2.3 seconds.
Right.
I was a couple of years ago, I was speaking in Dublin, which is kind of like land of parrots. And I was speaking at an event there, and sometimes I should say, my wife occasionally goes with me if I'm speaking at a conference and it's in a place like Dublin. Come on, we'll turn it into a vacation. So she joins me, and we were walking, after I spoke, we were walking down the street, and this woman had walked by, and I laughed out loud, and she said, what's so funny? I'm like, oh, did you see her shirt? She said, no, what was on it? And I repeated it back to her, and it said, bad decisions make great stories. And my wife looks at me and she goes, not always. Like, and there you have it. The parrot versus the owl. I'm guessing that person was a parrot. Because parrots are calculated risk takers. They're going to think about it, weigh the pros and cons. If it makes sense, they do it. If it doesn't make sense, they don't. But they're going to think it through first. Doves, what do you think? Doves high on the risk-taking scale?
Oh.
But very supportive of those who are. They are there for you. My mother's very high on a very strong dove, and I always say, you know, when I was a kid, she used to say, I'm the yayer. That is my role in the family. In fact, if we went to an amusement park, she'd say, I'm the yayer. And this was how she described it. I thought every family had a yayer. I didn't realize she was a dove, and that was what was playing out. But we'd all get on the roller coaster. She would not. As the dove, she would be there. But as we swung by and passed by on the roller coaster, what did she do? Yay! And she's cheering us on, taking pictures, waving at us, cheering us. And you know, maybe she's not going on, but she's there for us. And that's the difference you can see. You know, parrots are about the adventure, doves are about being supportive, owls are just more analytical, they're going to weigh the pros and cons, eagles just go for it. But notice how the styles, they just play out in everything that we do.
Yeah.
So let's do one more, and this I'm gonna take this to another level. I've been talking about applying it one-on-one, but what if you're talking to an entire group? What if you're talking to your entire company, or you have a sales call in front of 5 people or 8 people, or you're talking to your team of 10? How do you then apply the styles if there's people of all different styles that you're communicating to? So first, let's talk change for a moment, and then I'll show you how to do it. So what do you think? Eagles and change, what do you think about that?
No problemo.
Let's do it. When's it happening? Let's go. Parrots and change, what do you think?
Parrots and change, no problem.
Yeah, in fact, variety, it's fun, it's new. What do you think people, how about this one? We'll do a little myth busting. What do you think people think about owls and change?
What do I think people think about owls and change?
Do you think people think that owls are very excited?
Owl, but I don't want to get the wrong answer. So, like, you know.
Right. All right. As an owl, it must be correct. Well, what do you think? For an owl, a lot of times people think owls are very resistant to change, and it's because they do something. Picture this scenario. An eagle is announcing a change to an owl. How much information do you think an eagle shares?
0.
How much time do you think they give them?
None.
Exactly. But then the owl does something that makes it appear they're resistant. They start asking a lot of questions. And the eagle's like, we've already decided. The train's leaving the station. Okay, now you're just slowing down. Okay, get on. Now we're leaving. Get on the train. And what happens is those owls are perceived to be resistant, but they're not resistant. They just want to understand. They just want to make sure that what they're doing is right. And so imagine that owl who got all the detail, got the information, can see the change is better. They could be your best change agents because they're the ones going around and saying, you know, this is better. Let me tell you why.
Right.
And they are supporting it, and they have the logic and the data. So I had a CEO once, and he walked up to me at an event, and he said, all right, I got to tell you. He said, I hear what you're saying. Not everyone's resistant to change. We got to communicate the change to them, how they would want to hear it. He said, but I got to tell you, throughout my career, everyone's resistant to change, aren't they? I mean, isn't that just a fact? And so I looked at him and I said, and let me ask you something. By the way, he was a strong eagle. I said, let me ask you a question. Is that what you find everywhere you go, that people are resistant to change everywhere you go? And he looks at me and goes, everywhere I go. And I said, I do believe there is a common denominator to your story, but I'm not sure it is what you think it is. Because for that eagle, he's probably not providing a lot of information. He's probably not giving him a lot of time to acclimate to it. And then he gets a lot of questions, which he interprets as resistance. He's creating the very scenario he would love to avoid. He's actually maybe even creating resistance because he's not telling anybody, and now they're concerned. And that's the problem, is that we have to make sure we're communicating in a way that everyone can hear us. So let's have some fun with this. I'm a manager. I manage a department of 100 people, and I'm about to announce a wide-scale change that is going to impact everything we do because we're changing how we do it. We're going to create an entirely new system that we're about to implement. Now, whose style am I most likely to announce the change in? My own, of course, right? Exactly. Because I'm a parrot, I'm going to be excited about it. But I want to see if you can tune into, what do I do here? Besides just announcing it as a parrot, how do I announce it? Everybody's there. How do I connect with everyone? See if you can figure out what I'm doing. So I walk in and I say, all right, bottom line, here's what we're doing. Here's our goal. Here's the impact. Here's when it's happening. Let me tell you something. This is exciting. This new system is better. It is faster. It is easier than any system we have ever had. You are going to love it. I can't even wait to tell you about it. Now, I know it's new and I know it's different. We're going to keep you informed throughout the way. We're going to answer your questions. We're going to make sure that you're comfortable and you know what's happening. And I can tell you this, when this new system is in place, it's going to be better for us and for our customers. So let me walk you through step by step. I'm going to show you exactly what we are doing, why we are doing it, and how it's going to work. All right, so what did I do?
You delivered the message 4 different ways.
And I hit everybody. You see, if I only communicated in my parrot style, who do I connect with?
The parrot.
And who do I not connect with?
The other 3.
Exactly. And this is the power of using the styles, that when we communicate and we get information in our style, it's like it triggers our hardwiring. So when I'm in parrot rah-rah mode, maybe the owl isn't really interested, but they walk out of there and they got all the detail. The parrots are pumped and excited. The doves feel cared about. They feel reassured. The eagles got the bottom line right up front. And by the way, I started with the eagle first. Why do you think we started with the eagle first?
Because they want to hear the bottom line first. Their mind is gone after that first 30 seconds.
Yeah, you're eagles, you're dismissed. They're good to go. Yeah, attention span. If you don't hit them right up front, you may lose them. Parrots, same thing. Doves and owls, very patient. They will hang in there. Don't worry about your doves and owls. But notice the power of what I did. And whatever your role is, if you're a manager and you're managing a team, you've got to reach everybody. If you're a salesperson, I mean, imagine that sales, this is the day. You're a salesperson. You've been working on getting into this company for months. It has been your goal to make it into this company and to sell this company. It could be big. And finally, after months of talking to your contact, they have walked you in to the senior leadership team. There are 10 people sitting around a boardroom table. Whose style are you most likely to do that presentation in? There's probably two answers here. Either your own or maybe the person you've been talking to. Can you see the problem?
Yeah.
I may not be connecting with everybody in that room. And so no matter what your role is, the question is, are you imposing your style on them or are you connecting to everybody? And that's the power of application, of using the styles every day. So here's the thing. If you're going to use this and you're going to apply it, you have to be able to read styles of others. So you have to be able to look at somebody very quickly and figure out their style. And so let's have a little fun with that. So how about this? I'm going to model the 4 styles, and whether you can see me or you can just hear me, even just audio alone, you can tell my style. And I'm going to show you. See if you can figure out my style just from this momentary interaction. Here we go. You ready? So I'll model each 4. Imagine I'm meeting you at a networking event. So I walk up and here's the first one, and I say, "Hi there, nice to meet you, Merrick Rosenberg." All right, what's style?
How?
Well, let's play. Let me do all of them, and then we'll call them out. You ready?
Yeah.
The next one. "Hi, how are you? It's so nice to meet you, Merrick Rosenberg. It's such a pleasure."
Okay.
Ready? Next one. "Hello, Merrick Rosenberg. Nice to meet you." Last one. "Hey, welcome. So good to meet you, Merrick Rosenberg." All right. So first one. What do you think?
The dove?
First one's that confident eagle. It's like, "Hi there. Great to meet you," right?
Okay.
Then the second one, notice the language, the body language, the tone. The owl, more logical and more businesslike, more measured. The parrot, big energy and charisma. I mean, and it's like if you think about somebody's style, like a Robin Williams, I mean, just that parrot energy is bursting off the screen. And like an Arnold Schwarzenegger, that confident, direct, assertive eagle style. You know, you think of like in the business world, you know, someone like Bill Gates, very owl-like, or
Right.
Mother Teresa, or Princess Diana, very dove. And you can see it in their behavior and how they talk and how they hold themselves. And you know, the cool thing about this is anybody can be a great leader. And you know, and I'll give you some examples here. Take someone like Bill Gates, owl, self-made billionaire. Richard Branson, parrot, self-made billionaire. Howard Schultz from Starbucks, the dove. I once heard him say, "I wanted to create a company that my father never got to work at." I mean, that is so dove and self-made billionaire. Steve Jobs, eagle, self-made billionaire. Notice what we're talking about here. Style doesn't determine how successful you will be, but it absolutely determines how you go about being successful. Anybody can be very successful in any role, but your style is going to determine how you approach that role, the behaviors you display, how you interact with others. So let me give you another, we'll stay on people reading just for another moment. How about this? I've always said, show me half a dozen emails, I'll tell you their style. So let's play with that for a moment. Eagle email. You got a couple emails from an eagle. How would you know that that's an eagle email? What do you think?
This one's easy for me. No subject line.
Or it's just written in the subject line, no body, right? It's just boom. Here it is. Now let's contrast that to the owl. You just got an email from an owl. How do you know you got an email from an owl?
Bullets, it's formatted, colors, lots of stuff in there.
Oh, tons of detail, tons of questions, bullets, everything, attachments. How about the dove? How does it start off?
Hope all is well. How are you doing? How's the family?
Look how fast you get it. You totally know it. All right, see if you get this one. As a parrot, and maybe not, but I'll ask you anyway. See if you got it. There is one keystroke. It is the definitive keystroke that you know you got an email from a parrot.
What is it? Smiley face?
That's a good guess. The emojis, no doubt. I would say programmed by owls, used by parrots, but it is the exclamation point. And if you're a parrot, many parrots even do an exclamation point sweep after they write an email to make sure they don't have too many exclamation points. And so, in fact, what's funny is parrots, there's a new form of punctuation that has a name that I think everybody could use it, but I think parrots use it more than anybody. And it's called the interrobang. And here's how it works. You write a question, but you are so darn excited about that question that a question mark alone is just not going to suffice. So you put the question mark, then you put an exclamation point, and then you bookend it with another question mark. And it's called the interrobang. I think parrots probably use that more than anybody else.
Makes sense.
So let me, in fact, I'll give you one more way of how can you read somebody's style. I was speaking at a sales conference a little over a year ago, and several hundred people there, and at the end, people came up to the microphones and were asking questions. And one of the folks, she came up, and I thought this was a great question. She said, I leave a tremendous amount of voicemails for people. You know, it's like dialing for dollars. I am just calling, trying to reach somebody, and I often hit their voicemail. Is there any way of telling their style just from their voicemail? So right from the stage, I was like, all right, let's play it out. Let's see what we think. I was like, Eagle, leave a message. Boom. It's like a telegram. It's like, bam, leave a message. The Dove, Dove voicemail always starts the same. I'm sorry, I'm not here right now to answer your call. They're always apologizing. In fact, if you were to call my email as a parrot, or my voicemail as a parrot in my office right now, I admit it, you would get something that says something like, hey there, I'm busy sharing the eagles, parrots, doves, and owls with the world. Leave a message. I'll get back to you. Make it a great day. I know it's a parrot message, but I'm a parrot, and that's what I do. The owl voicemail. Please leave your name, number, time you called, reason for called, good time to get back to you. A few weeks ago, I called the doctor's office, and I got their voicemail, and I called up, and literally it was like, leave your name, leave which doctor you see. If you have a specific question, please leave your birth date. I mean, it had like 7 items. I literally hung up. I'm like, I'm never gonna remember it. I hung up the phone. I grabbed a pen and paper. I wrote down the list, but it was way too many things. I was still writing when it was starting to beep. I had to hang up again and call back a 3rd time to leave a voicemail because there were so many specific questions.
Right.
Now, as a parrot, I actually was very happy with that because I'm like, hey, this is great. I'm going to get exactly what I need. This is efficient. So I liked it. But I'm like, undoubtedly, that is an owl voicemail.
Right.
And that's what we're talking about. Is it's not just about understanding yourself. It's about understanding others and being able to flex and adapt. It's what I call the chameleon, being flexible and adaptable in the moment to the person, what needs to take place right now. So let me show you one more thing before we open it up for questions, and that is the shadow side. Notice the birds have a little shadow behind them now. And
this one's because, huge.
Yeah, sometimes when we overuse our strengths become our weakness.
Yeah.
So take eagle assertiveness becomes aggressive. That take charge becomes domineering. That directness becomes insensitive. It's when you push it into that red zone, dial it up a little too far. And when you get to this point, it pushes other people's buttons too. Let's do the parrot. I mean, how can you have too much optimism? Dial it up too much, it just becomes unrealistic. They're great at multitasking, but when you dial it up too much, it's just disorganized. Their stories tend to get bigger and bigger, and they're just too impulsive, quick decisions, too rash, just doesn't work. Eagles tend to get aggressive, doves tend to get passive. Eagles can become arrogant in overuse. Doves become insecure. Even love dialed up too much becomes a weakness. It's like smothering, like the grandmother who you've told you're full, you don't need any more food, and yet she's just piling food on your plate. You take it. Here, you can afford it. Here you go. It's love, but it's too much. And even the owl, I mean, how can you have too much accuracy? Well, it becomes perfectionistic. They can't declare something finished. It's too critical. They become indecisive and can't make a decision. So when we overuse our strengths become our weaknesses. And then that's when it becomes a challenge for us. So when you see other people in overuse mode, you got to say to yourself, are they stressed? Because stress is what creates this. And ourselves, when we start displaying these behaviors, we need to step back and say, all right, my style is not helping me in this situation. I'm overusing it. I'm dialing it up too much. I just need to dial it back. It's not changing who you are. It's actually being the highest version of who you are instead of this kind of red zone overuse
Right.
who you are.
No, this part is huge to me.
Yeah. Can you picture people when they get into this mode?
Yeah, I picture myself like the dove is avoiding confrontation and the owl's being sarcastic and always wants to have the right answer. And it's
Right.
not about that. Like it's just letting people grow and succeed. And if something's a problem, you gotta open up your mouth sometimes to talk about it, as uncomfortable as it is. It's something I struggle with, but
yeah,
at least
and we all do. We all are always trying to use our style to help us instead of hinder us. And it's like many of you are probably seeing yourself in this here, and it's why I wrote books with fables, because I want people to see themselves in the story. So why don't we do this? Why don't we open it up and let's open it up for some questions. What would you like to know? What can we tell you?
Merrick, we have a ton of questions and comments coming in, so I'm going to ask you just to spend a little bit of time on each so we get through as many as possible, and everybody will be able to follow up. We'll send out, for all those who are asking, a recording. You'll get in the follow-up email. You'll get information for finding out more if you want to connect with Merrick after and find out more about all this. So have no fear if we don't get to you now. But first is a comment from Aaron. In my experience, most decision makers in large companies tend to be the high eagle type. Love the bird analogy. Great way to explain and envision the personality type.
I will tell you though, about half, in the past about 2 years, I've worked with about 1,500 CEOs in all different industries, different size companies, and about half of CEOs are eagles. But the other half are everything else. And what's fascinating about that is if you were to go back 20, 25 years, it was overwhelmingly eagles. So in just like one generation, the dove, parrot, and owl styles are really becoming, stepping into their power as leaders. And I think that will keep happening. I think it's going to become a much more even split as we move forward.
Thanks. Here's a question from Nan. I am going to use this. Oh, actually a comment. Sorry, I'm going to use this with my 2 teams today. Will the recording be available? Yes. I'm also thinking of using his materials for some trainings next month. Looks like I'll be reaching out. Sure.
Well, we in fact, for trainers, we do certifications. We have certified trainers all over the world, and we provide participant guides and materials and profiles and workbooks and desktop birds, and we teach, and PowerPoints. We teach people how to facilitate this in a fun way and an engaging way. So if anybody wants to learn about that, just go to Take Flight Learning and give us a holler. We'll tell you all about it.
Here, Ruth says, shout out to Drexel, Philadelphia, South Jersey. Got to do that. A question from Dave. Not all senior leaders express ability to empathize. Big eagle in parentheses. How to encourage empathy with the team when managing up. Scenario, team morale.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's that, look, each style has their own strengths and each style has their own challenges. If you're a dove, sometimes handling performance issues is hard, or giving negative feedback or constructive feedback is difficult. If you're an eagle, empathy is a challenge. Each style has their own challenge, and for the eagle, that is the challenge, is connecting to that emotion of the people around them, and it's the emotional intelligence, that EQ or empathy, that is harder for them. But every style has their challenges. Owls, sometimes it's harder to generate big energy and enthusiasm. Parrots, sometimes it's harder to be more structured and detail oriented and process oriented. So that's why we have a team. That's why we have people around us. I always say, staff your weakness. Surround yourself with people who are good at the things you're not good at.
Yeah, that's what helped us as well. Like when I realized, that just put people around us that could do the other things. It was huge.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then a question from Scott. He said, this makes so much sense. I am wondering, what do the productivity numbers look like when teams learn how to use this? Not sure if you have any data around that.
It's interesting. We've actually had some data on that, and it's really amazing. I will tell you, the place that you see the biggest difference, if there's one thing that I hear more than any other statement, it's that the drama is gone. It feels like a different environment. It's almost like when I'm talking to an eagle and they're very direct with me, I'm a dove and I got offended by it before, but now I understand the birds and I'm like, oh, they're an eagle. And we're not using style as an excuse for behavior, but it's just when we understand each other, what happens is the drama goes away, communication gets way better. It becomes a common language. Remember I said this is about culture change? Literally, one of these sitting on everybody's desk. You walk into this person's office with an eagle on their desk, get to the point. You walk into this person's office with an owl on their desk, Give them the information. It changes the way people interact, which is inherently going to impact productivity and success.
Thanks. And then a comment from Nan, Eagle Parrot here. Making an outline of my family and teams while I'm listening. This is a powerful tool concept. I'm actually also an Eagle Parrot, and I was just listening to trying to understand how you know how many explanation points I put in my emails.
Exactly.
I could have told you, but you knew.
Exactly. Well, it's true. And look, this is the power of understanding this with our families. And coming up in a little bit later probably later this quarter, a little later this year, we're going to have a new kids profile. We have an adult profile, but the kids profile is coming soon. And I'm so excited about it because I want people to apply this in their life. The Chameleon book, it's a collection of 22 fables. And it's not just about work. It's the fables apply to us in life. Each fable teaches a different lesson of the personality styles. And then after each fable, there's a chameleon wisdom section of how to apply that as a parent, as a spouse, as a manager in the workplace. I've had many people say, I bought the audio version, and as I drive, I listen. We listen as a family to a fable, and then we just talk about it. And the fables are funny; they're fun. So I love when people apply this in their lives, not just in the workplace, which is typically where this stuff is taught. I want people to use this everywhere.
Question from Ruth: how can you use this model in a job interview when you have never met the people who are interviewing you? Example: I'm interviewing. Oh, sorry.
Great question. So first off, I would say before you get to the job interview, here's the deal. This is a selling situation. You're just selling yourself. And when you're selling, you've got to flex to the person who is the customer. Well, the customer is the interviewer. Here's what I tell people. When people go to interviews, they don't get tripped up by the questions because they've practiced most, the serious questions you get all the time. What they get tripped up on is the interviewer. And here's what I would recommend. Take every one of the questions that you're practicing to answer in that interview and answer it 4 ways. For an eagle, a parrot, a dove, and an owl. And you walk into that interview and they say, come in, have a seat. And they're very direct, get into eagle mode. You walk in and they say, hey, I'm so glad you're here. We're excited to meet you. Tell me about yourself. They're in parrot mode, dial up your energy. If they say, would you like some water? Have a seat. Did you find us okay? Be sincere and be the dove. And if they ask very specific, logical, analytical questions and they ask for specifics and data, provide specifics and data. So when you are practicing for an interview or a sales call, practice it for all 4 styles and then read them quickly and flex and adapt.
That's awesome advice. I have a ton more questions coming in. I promise I'll try to get to as many as possible. Hold on one sec. Can we say sometimes people are a combination of these? And then someone else asked how to balance everything so that we don't make others overuse their strengths.
So first part, absolutely. I'm a parrot eagle. My wife is an owl dove. Jeff, you said you're an owl dove. We are not just one style. We actually have all 4 in us to varying degrees. And so yes, we absolutely are combo styles. And the key is just to make sure if we treat people the way they want to be treated, then we honor their style and we don't push them into the red zone. When people get stressed and frustrated, that's when they overuse their style. Well, if you're speaking their language, inherently you're going to create a better relationship with them and you're not going to see those overuse behaviors. So the key really is treat them how they need to be treated.
Thank you. Another question from Kim. What if your disc style is SCI? What birds are you?
So it goes in order. DISC, eagle, parrot, dove, owl. So the S is the dove, that stands for supportive, or it stands for stable. There's not even consensus as to what the letters stand for. In 1928, the S stood for submission. We got rid of the letters. That's why I got rid of them. They don't really have meaning. SC, the conscientious style, is the owl. The I is the either influencing style or interacting style. That's the parrot. And if you had some D, that would be the dominant style, is the eagle.
Thank you. Another question from Norman. It seems like this whole theory assumes the best of everyone, that everyone is doing things for the best of everyone. That isn't always the case, though. Does this theory take that into account at all?
So here's the thing. We tend to treat people the way we like to be treated. And that's just an unconscious mechanism because we think other people like what we like. If there are people who lack integrity or who are manipulative, that doesn't correlate to style. People who have negative intention, anybody can be dishonest or and that necessarily correlate to the styles. The beautiful thing about the birds is they are positive. You know, I stick to the positive, and we do explain the shadow side, because you got to understand that. But for people who are negative or toxic, that transcends style. Those behaviors aren't coming from eagle, parrot, dove, and owl. That's coming from an aspect that's happening in their life, or it's coming from dissatisfaction in the workplace or how they're treated. So those are different issues than style-based issues.
But it could come on the shadow side, right?
When we get stressed, that's when our shadow side comes out. So if you are unhappy, the eagle might become aggressive. If the parrot gets unhappy, they might become passive aggressive. So that is definitely true. And when we're stressed, the shadow side comes out.
Right.
And then a couple people asking similar questions. I'll try to put it into one. Is it better to have a team of mixed styles to support each other's weaknesses, or does it not matter? And are these bird personalities interchangeable?
So here's the thing. When you look at a team, there was a fascinating study, and it looked at two different teams, very homogeneous teams versus like all like style, versus teams that were a diverse mix of all four. They looked at them at 3 time periods. Time period 1, the team that was very homogeneous, that was like, we're all very similar, hit the ground running very quickly. The team that was very diverse took a little while to get things moving. They didn't understand each other. In the middle time period, they were about even in terms of productivity. But in the third far out time period, the team that was so diverse outstripped, outran, outproduced that more very similar homogeneous group, because they brought so many different perspectives. So yes, it's true that diverse teams look at things from all different places. But the reality is sometimes your team is what it is. I worked with an engineering firm out in California. There were 75 people in the room. How many parrots do you think were in that room? 1. And you're looking at them. I was literally the only parrot there. It's an engineering firm, and that's okay. So for them, they need, almost everybody there was owl doves, and that's all right. So sometimes your team may be all one style, and that's exactly what you need. So there's kind of 2 answers to that. On one hand, yes, diverse teams have power, but on the flip side, sometimes your team needs to be one style, because that's what your job is. If you go into accounting, there's a lot of owls. You go into engineering or finance, there's a lot of owls. You go into human resources, there tends to be parrots and doves. I mean, we are drawn to a role because of our style, and that's okay.
Love how everybody's kind of taking their own personality and what you're saying. Kim just wrote in, thank goodness we can get the recording. I was on a 1-hour call that went to 1.5 hours. Parrot, question mark. How powerful to have a conscious connecting. Love that from Nan. Lewis, what about people who don't have these distinct personalities, meaning they're split across the board? Is that something that is common? Because I feel like a lot of people fall in these categories.
No, it's not common. There are very, very few people that have all 4 equally well. I can only name maybe 1 or 2, and I'll give you an example. Somebody like Oprah. Someone like Oprah, confident eagle, driving this empire that is her business world. Big charisma, powerful energy on stage, compassion and empathy and philanthropy, dove. Great interviewer, logical, great questioner, comes from the owl. But it's pretty rare that somebody is all 4 of them equally well. There's usually 1 or 2 which are like home base. Some people have 3 which are like home base. But if they have 3 strong ones, there's probably 1 that's really low, and that's a challenge for them. So we all have all 4. That is absolutely a true statement. But there's probably 1 or 2 which you see a lot, and there's probably 1 or 2 which you don't see very often.
And again, maybe some repetition, but I'm going to try to, maybe some people jumped on in the middle, but are there keywords we would hear that would tell us to connect a person to a specific style? I believe they're asking.
Oh yeah, look, if I'm talking to an owl, I could trigger them to listen to me by using keywords. If I was speaking to an owl, I might say, I know quality is important to you. It's important to me. I'd like to share some things with you. Owl is going to tune in when you're talking about quality. I know results are important to you. They're important to me too. I have a few things to share with you if you have a moment. Results gets that eagle to tune in. You know, hey, morale is important to me. Creating a great culture and environment is so important. I have some thoughts. Can we talk about it? Parrots, it's about culture. For the doves, look, I have a few ideas. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to talk with you, listen to what you're thinking. Listening, empathy, sincerity, those are words doves tune into. Once you learn the language of the 4 birds, you can use them to get people to tune into you because they trigger their natural hardwiring. So absolutely. When I do like a half day or full day session, we talk a lot about that. We talk about how do you trigger people to tune into you.
Somebody, Mo wrote in with a great question. If we were to do an email marketing campaign, how can we maximize engagement to meet all 4 styles, or should we send the same email in 4 different styles? I want an email from you, Mo.
So first thing is, if you're marketing to a specific group and that group happens to be a specific style, you're marketing to engineers, I would write an owl brochure. If I was marketing to marketing people, I would send it to Parrots. First thing I would say is who's the audience? And if they're a diverse audience, I'd hit all 4. In fact, I've always wished I could create a website, like 4 versions of my website, where you just click on it and you go, I'm a parrot, and then you click on the parrot, and then the fireworks erupt, and it's all colorful, and you click on the owl, and then all of a sudden a very detailed specifics of all the training programs we offer and the certifications we deliver and the profiles we have, and it all comes up and it describes every one of them. How nice would that be? But I do agree with that. I think you have to think about who you're talking to. If you can identify the style of your audience, communicate in that style. If you think it's a diverse mix, then you got to hit everybody.
So whoever's a web designer listening, they want a free signed copy of Merrick's book. Now's the time to get in touch. Somebody asked, Kim asked, can people be a different style at home versus work? Absolutely. In fact, the report that we generate when people take the profile, you can see like what's called an adapted graph and a natural graph. Your natural graph tends to be who you are at home. Left to your own devices, the culture isn't, or role or job you're in isn't causing you to act in a different way. That's that home style. But then there's also the adapted style. This is sometimes at work we dial up a specific behavior given the role we have, or sometimes the culture draws certain styles or behaviors out because that's the way we work. And I've been saying this throughout this process of people being in lockdown and quarantining and working from home. Sometimes spouses are looking at their partner like, who are you? Because they've only ever seen their home version of themselves. Now they're seeing the work version and they're like, I don't even know you. Like, I'm hearing you on the phone. Who are you? Who is this person? Because they're dialing up new behaviors in the workplace given the role that they're in. But here's the one thing. When you work in your style, it feeds you. When you work out of your style, it's exhausting. So if you do have to dial up or dial down certain behaviors to fit into a culture or adapt to a role, that may take energy from you. Could be very good at it, but it still may take some energy from you. And I think we have a bunch more questions, but I'm gonna, just for the sake of time, limit it a bit here. I'm not sure if I'm not familiar with this. Maybe you've heard of it. Is this the related to or the same as the temperament scales? Yeah, so the temperaments, if you think about where all this stuff came from Aristotle and Hippocrates, and from there's always 4. They go back to the Greek temperaments. They go back to the 4 elements in China. They go back to the 4 seasons or animals or directions on the Native American medicine wheel. I could run off a list of probably 20 different cultures and religions that these 4 birds parallel. And so, look, when you find something like this, and it seems to appear throughout history, different cultures and religions all over the world, like the temperaments, you say something's playing out here. There is absolute truth in this. And now science tells us that there's 4 brain quadrants, there's different brain chemicals for each of these styles that get triggered. So yes, the temperaments do parallel the 4 birds, as do many 4 style systems. Amazing, thank you. So I think we're gonna have to stop here. I really appreciate everybody's questions and comments, and I'm sure Merrick would be happy to speak with you more after. I just wanna say, Merrick, thank you so much for being here and sharing. Sounds like from the feedback coming in that people gain and learn so much that they're gonna apply to their day-to-day. I know I'm wondering if you're a prophet on my end. You're listening to you describe my life. Jeffrey, thank you so much for making this happen. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. And I just want to let you know, for those who are asking, that we will send you a recording. We will give you Merrick's follow-up information. He does have a book for all those who are asking. Maybe he'll sign it for you. That I can't say for sure. But definitely get the book. We buy it all the time. I read it regularly like a Bible, and it's amazing. And just one more thing, we're going to be having another webinar. We have one a month on all sorts of topics. Now that you all know how to speak to the people to make money, this one's going to be on how to give yourself money in your pocket in other ways. So it's February 11th at 11 a.m. Stay in touch with us to get all the info on that. And again, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Merrick, thank you. Jeffrey, thank you so much.
Thanks, Merrick.
Have a great day, everybody. Take care.